Hi and welcome to the Beer Temple. I am Chris Quinn, and today I have a beer from the Chicago area that has been getting a lot of buzz. I guess not this beer particularly, but the brewery, or the Gypsy Brewery in this case. Transient Artisan Ales, a brewery that focuses on wild fermentations, sour beers, acidic beers, Brettanomyces beers, and it's interesting, Transient considers, the person, the head brewer and the person who is Transient, Chris Betts, considers himself a gypsy brewery, but it's kind of like side project is a gypsy brewery of Corey King, who is also the head brewer at Perennial and does all the side project beer at Perennial. So it's like a tied gypsy brewery, or kind of like a brewery within a brewery, and that's the case here as well. Chris Betts is the head brewer at One Trick Pony in Illinois, and right by the Indiana border, and he, as his own little side project, does these transient ales, and like side project, does a lot of barrel fermentation and stuff like that. Quick note, the weather has been haywire and my allergies are acting up a little bit, so if I sound even more nasally than usual, please forgive me. So Transient Artisan Ales has really not been around very long. I think maybe a year, if give or take a little bit. But they kind of came onto the scene by going to the Goose Island Belgian Fest, which showcases a lot of sour and wild ales, because that's kind of one of the areas that Belgian beers are known for. And nobody had heard of this Transient Ales. He brought a ton of beers, and some of them really showed well. So this guy kind of was just like, okay, his coming out party was very successful, and since then, has continued to mainly do keg only beer, but has now begun to bottle as well. And Chris was nice enough to give me this bottle. I've done a couple events with him, and I really liked an Oud Bruin he did, so he dropped this off. And this is an Oud Bruin aged in wild turkey barrels. Pardon me, 8.5%. Oh, somebody else sent me this too. The guy who does the Gropener. I think it was a Kickstarter thing. So, interesting. It's got a little magnet there, and also is magnetized, so I don't know if you can see that, but it sticks right to anything metallic, so it doesn't bend the cap. You can put it right back on. In fact, it goes back on so easy that if you put it all the way on, you kind of sometimes need to use the bottle opener again. Interesting stuff. Anyway, Oud Bruin, Belgian style. If you guys have heard of Flemish red ales or Flemish brown ales, a lot of times now they're just being called Flemish red brown ales because they're becoming more and more alike. Historically, the Flemish reds would be a little bit more tart, and they would see contact with wood, where often the Oud Bruins would not see contact with wood. So this is called an Oud Bruin, although it's fermented in barrels. So this was not, I believe, not just conditioned in a barrel. Actually, the primary fermentation happened in the barrel itself, and that is not at all normal. So with like a barrel-aged stout and stuff like that, they go under normal fermentation. They do, in those big steel tanks. That's how they get made, and then once they're finished, then they get transferred into the barrel for a secondary fermentation, like a maturation process, which is really what secondary fermentation is. But this, the whole shebang is happening inside the wood. So much more closely related to a Flemish red, although an Oud Bruin, in addition to, aside from the point that it sees wood more, also has a little bit more balance, I have found, in kind of standard examples of the style, to be a little bit more balanced between the caramel sweetness and the acidity. So let's see if that's the case as well. Definitely a brown color, which could be the only reason he went with Oud Bruin, because he's like, well, it ain't red, it's kind of brown, I'm going to call it a brown. So anyway, brown, fairly clear beer here, nice head of foam. and really an awesome, man, what a great smell to this beer. So the first thing I get is like tart cherries and like a little bit of like a caramel note as well. You definitely get some wood, but I'm not getting a ton of booze. If you had told me this was a wine barrel, I probably wouldn't have thought too much of it. Just a really aromatic fruit, cherry, and wood note to it. A little bit fuller mouthfeel. You get some of that sweetness on the palate that I would expect from a Oud Bruin. A good amount of lactic acid, that nice clean lemony acid, with a hint of that cherry note, maybe a touch of acetic acid, not very much at all, a very pleasant amount. This is not vinegary at all. It kind of, and I don't know if this is, I'm taking these zinc pills, and I think those, they like are supposed to inhibit certain things on your tongue. So the man, this beer smells so good. Very reminiscent of like a La Folie, this aroma, which is high praise. The mid palate falls off just a hint for me, but that acidity, the sweetness I should say, falls off, but the acidity follows right through to the end. And it really has a very nice, refreshing finish to it, where you get some of those cherry, maybe a little bit of like raisin, or like a big dark grape, and just a hint of sweetness as well. Very nice beer. The ashy oakiness, like a dusty oak thing, also is kind of left in your mouth as well, so you are getting the barrel for sure. A really nice, I'm not getting the spirit, but I am getting just that oakiness. It's not a vanilla thing, it's not a coconut thing, it's not that heavy char that you get. It's just kind of a nice clean wood flavor to it, which is very nice, and goes, I think, very well with this style, better than those overly charred examples would be. He is doing this as part of a FOBAB thing, the Festival of Barrel-Aged Beers that happens every year in Chicago, and a lot of different brewers are given wild turkey barrels and said, go have at it, you know, see what you can do. So some will do sours, some will do big imperial stouts, I'm sure some will do an IPA and all sorts of stuff, and I'm curious to see if you're going to get different characteristics from the barrel itself from the beer, or like if some will have a lot of coconut to it where this one doesn't, or will this same barrel character show in all the beers, and it's just how does this barrel character complement different styles. Very interesting to see. So people who are going to are interested in going to FOBAB in 2014, that's something to look out for, this kind of wild turkey thing they're doing. Very nice. But anyway, in terms of what we got here, the Transient Artisan Ales making a very good debut on the Beer Temple with their Wild Turkey Oud Bruin. And guys, thank you so much as always. Thank you for the comments and the emails and stuff like that. I try to get back to all you guys as quickly as I can. But thank you so much. All my stuff's kicking on, and I'm gonna have to open up the store now. So hey, feel free to leave me an email or write a review on iTunes or a rating. I very much appreciate that, and that helps get the show out. So if you think this is a show people would be interested in watching, that's a great way to kind of proselytize it. But anyway, guys, until next time, I've got some great locally made wild fermented beer to drink, and hopefully you do too, wherever you are. I hope you have some great local sour beer to drink. Cheers, guys.